if it interests you, follow it through. I think my therapist thinks there's something with that PhD thing. She thinks it's the you're going to be a doctor thing. That I didn't do their way, but I did it my way.
Okay.
Which I hadn't thought of it that way, because for me it was just, I want to go learn something new. Like I want to be afraid again. And being afraid again is really healthy for me because I'm humble, I'm a student, and nothing about my way is arrogant because I don't know ish to start off with. So that's what she pointed. I'm like, I could double your pay for this session because I didn't see that coming. But I do love knowledge. I do love learning. But I also, much more than learning, I love sharing it. In the past, my tone was quite pedagogic and judgmental. So it was, do you know what I know? And now it is more storytelling than me on a podium telling you what I know.
Yeah.
So I've evolved. I think people who worked with me 10 years ago, even listening to this would go, oh gosh, she's a cow. If you're listening to this, I'm no longer a cow. I'm a reformed cow. I'm much softer and much more gentle in my ways.
Welcome to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast. I'm your host, Kojo Baffoe. In this podcast, I speak to Africans from across a multitude of sectors, including business, art, culture, media, design, technology, advertising, and everything in between, delving into their journeys and reflecting on the lessons they have learned along the way. It's about gaining insight into why and how they do what they do. These conversations offer a treasure trove of takeaways on a wide range of topics, including craft, relationships, wellness, parenting, entrepreneurship, and much more. The conversation that was being had outside. So I'm going to do literally a quick intro. But the conversation they were having was, and I've done it before. Sometimes, like already the conversation we're having, like I'll record that, and then we just go. And we see where we end up. And I literally, there's one episode I did with Sfiso Kanyila, I don't know if you know Sfiso. He's like, he's an archivist and a filmmaker. So he loves rabbit holes, and I love rabbit holes. So literally we started, and it was audio, I was using a different studio. They started recording, and we just started talking.
Yes.
As we were talking.
Yeah.
And then like 5 minutes into it, I was like, oh, crap. Oh, so my guest is Sfiso Kanyila. He's a this. So yeah, listen, that point.
Before I forget that point, yeah.
Okay, but I'm
so
going to do...
what are you doing? You're going to do
I'm going to do a very quick intro.
Good luck to you.
I just wrote what was in your LinkedIn.
Oh my God. Okay. Opportunity to decide whether I like that or not. Go.
There you go. So my guest today is Sizakele Marutlulle, PhD. I should say Dr. Sizakele. A creative strategist, speaker, leadership advisor, facilitator, and educator who's worked extensively across ad agencies in particular, and currently runs Marutlulle & Co. and is director for global engagement at the Gordon Institute of Business Science. Welcome.
I thank you.
Do you like that intro?
That's a lot of words, Kojo.
But those are your words. Like, I just took your words.
When I'm listening to you repeat the stuff, I'm going, many words. Opportunity to rewrite that bio would be middle child, only daughter, loves things that make her really, really afraid, and loves people who think there are things that would make them very, very afraid, period.
How often do you change that? So I also often write my own bio, my own profile, because I'm supposedly a writer and I know these things.
You should, yeah.
But because I've dabbled in so many different things, I'm constantly like changing. It's like, okay, what feels like it works now? So how often do you rework that?
Often enough. Like, so for example, somebody will say to me, come and speak to a group of women. I'm like, oh, so am I a womanist now? So am I supposed to write a speaker to women? Or something interesting happens, like somebody invites you to go and present at some interesting event, and you think, how else should I rephrase this? Because the audience in the room are going to click through my QR code and then they'll land on a page, so the page had better. So I do have occasional revisitings, but I'm not the person who is comfortable turning the light on myself. So I do feel that maybe it's a generational thing. I'm like, the work must do the talking. If you want to know who I am or what I do, just follow my work. But other people say, you've got to put it down. So then you put it down.
The brand, right?
I know. I'm like, people need to know where to find you. So you have to use the words that the search engine will locate. And then
Actually, just talking about that. So, what are your thoughts on this idea of a human being as a brand? What they talk about as personal brand.
Are you asking me this because you know I'm teaching this class next week?
No, I didn't know that. So, so there we go.
So I teach. So 2017, I get invited to Gibbs, which is now the other place where I spend some of my time. And I am co-teaching with the lady who was the dean at the time. And my section then became personal branding. And I realized that when people talk about personal brand, at least the people who come into the class are very disappointed when I tell them I'm not interested in your filter. I'm not interested in how many followers you have. I'm interested in the content of your character. So let's have a conversation about the person in the brand, not, you know. So I can see some disappointments because I think they walk in, they think she's going to help me quadruple my followers. I'm going, I have 3 followers on any platform, so I can't help you with that. But what I am going to do is challenge you to think about who you are, because whatever you put outside of that it's secondary to the human being that you are. So then people end up crying, like I feel like I'm doing the Lord's work in that session sometimes. So I do think that personal branding, as it's been understood, like you can either go down the journey that says package yourself so people can find you, so you're distinct, so you're memorable, so you become the referred and most preferred, right? So that stuff. Or you can just say, who am I and how do I want to go through the world? And I'm more interested in that piece, the who am I and how do I want to go through the world, as opposed to that other stuff. So
I think you articulated very nicely something that I have struggled with. And like you're saying, perhaps it's a generational thing. But so I have a pinned tweet. I mean, I don't mess around with Elon Musk's Twitter anymore, but I've had it for years. And it says human being human, hashtag not a brand. Because when this idea of personal branding came up, it really felt like okay, how do I package myself? And, you know, coming from the era of you build a professional reputation, right? That's tied to you as a human being. So you learn things and you go out in the world and you interact with people and you work. And over time, you start becoming associated with certain values or certain principles. And that is your brand in inverted commas.
yes.
It's your reputation. And all you do is you stay focused on making sure that you do not tarnish that reputation, and you don't tarnish that reputation because it's tied to how you show up in the world and how you interact with other human beings.
Amen. And also how part of that reputation management thing is about how consistent you are and how proximate you are to your values on an everyday basis, right? So, and it's not suggesting, by the way, that you will always get it right, but if you just get it like much more than like our metric pass rate, like, don't aim for 30, aim for 70% hit rate, so you can get to bed at night and go, today I was unkind, today I was all these things, I'll forgive myself and I'll try again tomorrow. But on the whole, you should be able to just hit your value and behavior alignment thing maybe 60 to 70% of the time. But yes, I agree with you completely that there is a thing that upsets me. It upsets me because when we speak about personal brands as packaging, you're seeing this superficiality and you're seeing this fake it till you make it thing, like all this verbiage that is unfamiliar to me, not because I was born in 1929, but because I refuse to absorb these things as part of my language. Like there are things I'm not going to be okay with, and I'm okay with people not being okay with the fact that I'm not okay with those things. But at the end, I'm interested in who you are. So your pinned tweet reminds me of a thing I said a million years ago to myself, and I thought, oh, this is so smart, Zah, which is, if we were meant to focus on doing, surely the giver of life would have called us human doings.
Yeah.
We're called human beings for a reason. So why don't we spend time figuring out what that is instead of the doing part? But I guess it makes sense when you've had enough summers on. And you can slow down.
Yeah, that is true.
At 22, you're not interested in what? To be or not to be? That's not a question I want to answer in my 20s. Ask me when I'm 69, and then people look back at that. But yeah.
In a way, it's nice. It feels nice to be a little advanced in years in this era. I mean, I have teenage children, and I look at the world that they're growing up in, and I'm kind of like, it looks really hard. Just trying to figure out, because I try to impart certain things, impart certain values, impart certain perspectives. And those were the values and perspectives that were taught to me by my father. But there was less noise. So even though I may have rebelled when I was younger, like I reached the age where I started to understand my father's perspective. But in reality, kind of the influences on me, they were external influences, but not at the level, that young people are dealing with today, in terms of trying to navigate and tune out all of this noise. So to a certain extent, and these things do come with age, I am a lot more glad for the era I grew up in.
That's fair.
And how I interact with the world today, because I can.
I feel so sad for you. Not sad. I feel so concerned for parents who are trying to raise good kids. Like you, all of you have my sympathy, because I imagine how hard that can be. Because all you're trying to do is raise good humans. And everywhere they go, they're being invited to do other things that take away from that. So I really do. Like, which is why I guess I love being like this aunt. Like who can just come in and just go, and off I go. As long as I don't contradict your parental values, I'm a cool person to have around human beings who are growing up, because I don't have the guilt that parents have. Like, I think sometimes, particularly if you're like a single parent and you're female and you think, oh, I'm away because I'm working 9 jobs. So when this kid asks for 10 things, I'll give all 10 things. I'm like, no. If this weekend is his friend's birthday party, why are you shopping? Because that's not your friend. It's his friend. Why are you shopping? The parents like, no, because I know what the friend likes. I'm like, that's not your friend. Get them to shop, get them to use their own money, get them to make their own bed, get them to... And then when they're done, I can take them shopping and we can have a good time. So you do have my sympathies and my respect, actually.
Well, some of those things are easier said than done.
Say more?
So I was humbled. So my oldest sister, born in Ghana, grew up in Ghana, speaks Ghanaian languages, then was in Lesotho, speaks Lesotho. My brother-in-law is from Venda. And so I have 2 nephews and a niece, they're kids. And I remember before I moved to Joburg, and even after I moved to Joburg, the voice stayed in the Vaal area. And I used to lament how my nephews and niece do not speak any, I hate the word vernacular, but any of the languages from our cultures, right? So Chivenda, Twi, Sesotho, anything. And I used to harp on about this. And then I had children.
Yeah.
And then I discovered how difficult, like my children don't speak Sesotho.
Yeah.
And then I discovered how difficult it is. So it was like, that was one of my biggest lessons in humility and recognizing that in theory, everything makes sense until you're like in the middle of it, trying to navigate all the different things. And yeah.
And deciding which battle to
Yeah,
win.
exactly.
So, but Nache, I'm still in that WhatsApp group. How can this person be Sizakele Marutlulle and does not speak Sesotho? It is not correct. I'm still that aunt who will go in and go, Dumela. And this person says, Ma'am, what did Auntie Zah just say? But I remember a time when your kid went to a white school and the white teacher sent a note home saying, please speak English at home so Zah's proficiency in the language can improve. So you had well-intentioned parents who send us to these schools and they're like, okay, if it's going to help my child in the future, forget Sesotho. We're now going to be Kwitizarang in this house. And then before you know it, we've forgotten. Like literally you look at a friend and you go, my friend, what is like what toko? And like, I don't know what that is. So you spend 3 minutes just going, Kidi toko or kima toko. So yeah, so there's a lot we lose.
Where did you grow up?
I was born in Mabetla, Snawaine Clinic, I'm told. I was actually born on the same day that my mother's dad passed away. So if I had been a boy, my name would have been Jotham. Just let that sink in for a minute. Ukinawana, right? So I probably would have called it Joe or something like that, but I would have like funkified it immediately getting out the gate. So I would have been Jotham. So as a consequence of that, she didn't attend her father's funeral, but she had me instead. And there are parts of me that she says remind her of him, stubbornness and all the other bits. But that's how I entered the world. And then I spent a huge part of my time with a gran, who wasn't even my blood grandmother, but it was a gogo in the neighborhood because I came 2 weeks too late. So my mother left me with Mam Konas and she went back to school. She was a nurse. She went back to work. Then from there, was shipped off to Swaziland. And then I was gone until I came here after matric. And then South Africa said, what? You wrote that exam? Where? In that bloody kingdom. You need to write another exam. So I sat and repeated the South African exam.
Where'd you go to school, Swaziland?
Our Lady of Sorrows. The minute I say that, people go, oh, how sorrowful. I'm like, it was. We had Dominican nuns for teachers, but they had come from
My sister went to St. Mark's.
Or other people would often say, like, Waterford. I go, no. My mother worked 9 jobs to keep me in school, so Waterford was not.
I think my older sister went to St. Mark's. They had a lot of saint schools because I'm like
St. Teresa.
Because my aunt taught at St. Teresa for many years.
There we go. So the Catholics had a good representation in the kingdom. And it offered a quality education. So, like, when I asked my mom what was Swaziland about, she was like, wait again. There are several things I wanted for my children that I wasn't going to let money take off the table. And one of them was a quality education. However you define a quality education. But being away and out of South Africa at that time seems to have helped.
I like it. When you say it, and of what I know of you,
yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, and now I get it. Like, I get it. Like, okay, yeah, that Zah's like that because...
Really?
And not like that in terms of I can pinpoint something.
Yes.
But there's
some sensibility.
Yeah.
And but I got into trouble.
But there's a certain energy to... So, I mean, I grew up in Lesotho, so I went to Machabeng, which... So Waterford is our sister school. So I even went on sports programs, like sports trips to Waterford. I had cousins who studied at Waterford because my family, we moved to Lesotho with my father, and then at some stage we moved to Swaziland for about 3 years. So he was lecturing there, and then we came back. But literally my kind of closest relatives from the Ghanaian side. And the reason why we actually moved to Lesotho with my father, they were in Swaziland. So I used to visit, during holidays and stuff, I'd go there for a week with my uncle and my aunt and my cousins my aunt taught at St. Teresa's. But a friend of mine was saying this the other day, who also grew up in Lesotho and also went to Machebe. But during the 80s in particular, growing up in those countries gives it's like a different lens to the world. Because I didn't grow up here. So my struggle was coming here and kind of seeing how restricted that lens was. Because the OJs came to Lesotho in the 70s. Like something as random as that, right? You're in this small country. I remember watching Bob Marley in Swaziland, but I didn't watch the concert. I watched kind of like a video. Or English football teams. I think Liverpool and Tottenham Hotspurs in those days and Man United came to Swaziland to play games.
It was life outside of SA.
Yeah.
Available to people that this town and this country didn't think were worthy of anything beyond just servile relationships. But here are a couple of things that I learned. One was going to Swaziland was fantastic. Our Dominican nuns were cool. We had girls up until O levels. Boys left at 12 because they started hitting on the nuns. I don't know what happens to boys and hormones. So after standard,
I don't want to say I get it, but okay.
So after standard 5, I'm like, you must go. So off the boys would go, and then we would just be left. But there was, we'd always have these good-looking parish priests come. They were just always good-looking, which was problematic because we don't know anything about boys. That no Mills and Boons, someone is sneaking in something because they've got an older brother. And Catholicism always did two things, which is why I guess it's in my review mirror now, because it made you guilty. Like you were either offending boys or God at any one point. You were just never like a good human being. You were always, so that was the one piece. The other piece was the joy about being in that school was understanding that all of us are human. I don't care your skin tone. I don't care how much money your parents have, which created a confusion coming home. Because when you come back to South Africa says, no. The people like you sit to the left, the other people sit to the right. It can create confusion. But when you look at it now, you go, okay, it taught me adaptability, right? Okay, I can walk into an environment and go, I don't know who you are, but I know what I'm bringing. But it created a lot of, I remember the first time my mother hit me in public was that confusion, because she had, in her dream, she raised me for a world she didn't understand. So we're in Standard Bank and we're standing in line, and then she needs to go to the bathroom. So she says, I must hold her space. I'm like, of course. While she's gone, a white woman comes. So when my mom comes back, I say to the white woman, my mother, she's back, so this is her spot. The white woman begins to argue with me. So, of course, I am familiar with white people, so I answer back. And my mother claps me. Right? I didn't understand that after many years in therapy, what that was about. Because in that moment, she was a black woman whose black child was misbehaving. Right? So it is important that the white person can see that this white woman has raised a good child. So there were all these things happening at the same time. But for a 12-year-old, you just remember the confusion that, Ma, this is me doing stuff for you because this is the right thing. But that's not how it translated in my 12-year-old mind. So there were, much as Swaziland opened up my life, it also created, I think, in part, these points of friction in my relationships, in my immediate family, and in the wider world. Because you're like, what? Got blonde hair, so try my cheese scope for a day, and I'll show you what. I'm sure he was joyful about living.
I guess so the thing I was fortunate in is that I actually really started interacting with South Africa as a 18, 19-year-old. And I mean, this was like 92. I went to varsity in 92. And that was my first real experience of living here. I'd visited a couple of times. Like I'd come to Joburg. I think I'd come to Joburg for the first time for a weekend with friends, 17, going on 18. And we stayed in Soweto because one of my closest friends who was at school in Lesotho, his family stayed in Soweto. And I mean, there were three of us. The third is lighter than I am. Yeah,
so that's proper.
He leans more to the white side. And in 1990, we're staying in Soweto. We're going and partying at Kind Center, like on a Saturday night, and going to Gemini and all of these things, because our context. I mean, that was our cultural and social context. But it was still kind of coming in where, because of the people we're with, we kind of belong. And going to varsity, where I'm discovering all these different things. I can't imagine what it would have been like if I was spending time here as a 13-year-old, the son of a man who lived in Europe for over 12 years. And will give you, as West Africans do, will give you a piece of his mind, regardless of who you are. And watching that growing up, where it's just like, yeah, like it's, if you're doing something foolish, you're doing something foolish.
Yes.
That's it. As to your cultural, racial, age, class, background, it has no bearing in this particular instance.
Because nonsense is nonsense.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. But so what I don't know what it was like for you. What I know for me is because my folks divorced when I was around 12. My brain seems to fixate on 12. Like, I promise you, if you ask me anything, that's the earliest memory I have. But she then raises these 3 kids on her own. And I remember her waking up like at 4 in the morning, hop on a train to get to Eden Vales, because she worked at a hospital called Rietfontein. It was a TB hospital. And she would walk through the men's hostel in Mabetla, like literally walk through the men's hostel. And they would look out for her. She was a nurse in a white nurse's uniform, and they would look out for her, right? So there are so many things that when I look at her life, and I look at my life, and I look at life now, we've lost so much on our journey to moving forward. Like I just this idea of just thinking at 4 in the morning, there's a Black woman who's walking through a men's hostel. And she literally can walk from one end to the other, and everyone is looking out for her, not looking at her, looking out for her. So that sense of sacrifice does follow you throughout life, and it creates the guilt, which is why I can understand why some kids now are saying, I know how much my parents suffered, so I couldn't tell them I was having a hard time in school because of all that sacrifice. So joyful as these things are now that we can reflect about them, you also realize that there were things that were lost in the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess the importance is being able to take the time to reflect on some of these things.
And make peace. Because some things you don't understand. So, for example, I then come back here and I'm smart in maths and science. Guess what? Everyone says, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a doctor. And you start thinking you're going to be a doctor. So people ask you, so what are you going to be? Like, I'm going to be a doctor. And then you realize, no, doctor, bleeding, blood, not so much. And somewhere in my confusion, after the 2 matrics, I met somebody, and I don't know who they were, and they were saying that if you're confused about what to study, pursue the liberal arts because it gives you this expansive landscape, and then you can narrow in if you choose in the end. And that's how I ended up going down the liberal arts route. But forget my glorious maths and science marks, and that's where I went. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this to say, I think it ladders up on the earlier thing about our parents, at least my parents, having dreams for a world they couldn't help me navigate, because she stopped school in JC and went to nursing because they paid you whilst you trained and she could raise her siblings. So now you're navigating university on your own because you don't have references in the family to ask, what am I supposed to study? Where will this land? So there's a loneliness that comes from that. And before you know it, you run the rest of your life feeling like an outside figure in your family. And then like we were talking about the notion of othering. And then you reinforce that sense of other. Like, because you don't understand me, I'm going to chart my own path. And then it compounds the gap because they look at you, they go, she doesn't talk. But I'm going, when I talk to you, you don't know what I'm talking about. So then I'm not going to talk to you. So then it just, yeah. But
and it's about, I guess it's about trying to figure out and find that common ground coming from two different worlds. And I mean, you describe it and it literally just reinforces, I guess, the privilege I had, because none of my journey through school into university is divorced from my father's world. In fact, I always joke and say I went into the family business, right? I went literally into the family business, but I majored in economics, business administration, and marketing. My father was an economist. My father taught political science, sociology, African studies, economics. So I learned, and he went into business and started a management consulting company. As a 15-year-old, I was doing his research and doing his typing. So, and working on reports and working on proposals during school holidays. And so when I said, he was like, okay, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I want to do what you do. And he said, what do I do? I'm like, you help other businesses become better, because that was my understanding.
Yes.
And then he planned my degree.
Lucky.
Right? Where the conflict was I wanted to study certain things, and he's like, no, it doesn't fit into, I wanted to do philosophy. I was like, that'd be interesting. But even, my education of African history, my education around African literature was all from home. Like, he converted when we moved into the house. It's still the family home now, but he converted the garage into a study for all his books. So I grew up just, there was textbooks for everything. And then there was not a lot of novels. Most of the novels were mine. My father believed that you must read things of value.
From people you could point to.
And like at my high school, the library, I had a Western's face, Louis L'Amour. When a new book came in, the librarian would let me know, and this guy was prolific with his writing. So, when you describe the disconnect, it just reinforces how fortunate I am, because everything was so connected. And who I am today is directly linked to my father. Like, he trained me. University was literally just to give a theoretical foundation to the stuff that he was teaching me by being.
Did it feel like, so for you, it was always assumed that you do high school and you'd go on to university?
University was not, it was not a debate.
It's what we do here.
It was, you're going to university. I remember having to convince him to let my brother go to a technicon by explaining the education system where it fit in terms of as an institution. And because he lived in Germany for so long, because a master craftsman in Germany is like like having a PhD. There is that respect and prestige to being a craftsperson. And so showing him that it's a similar concept, it's like practicum.
Yeah,
So
but it brings depth to
was when he went, okay, cool. But I was always going to university. Like there was never but maybe I can try. No, like you're going to university.
Isn't that amazing?
So I discovered something. I think, where did you go to university?
Durban Westville.
Okay.
And Durban Westville was like it was a politicized campus for somebody who, like I think when I say my politics, I mean my political affiliations, as in political party affiliations, have always been loose because I've never been a card-carrying member of anything. But our campus was politicized in that sense. It was the UDM, the Ellen Busaks. I remember trying to get arrested. Hey, Marakojo. You know when you're seeking credentials because 3 people in your class have been arrested and they speak of themselves as comrades. You're like, Zah, you're getting left behind here, dude. You
even has a ring to it.
Do you know what I mean? Like you need some stuff to. And thank God for Ayanda. May his soul rest in peace. Ellen Busa came onto campus and they were talking about the revolution and the transformation of this country. This is 1991, and the cops came and they started arresting people. So some students were running away. I'm thinking, Ayanda, let's run into the van because then at least we're going to have like these Mzabalazo credentials. And he stopped me because his dad was a judge. And he said to me, do you realize that you will never untick a box that says, have you ever been arrested or do you have a criminal record? I hated him in that moment because he was messing with my flow. But what I learned from that interaction is that people who are good to you, Kojo, are the people who are good to you even past your ignorance. Because it was ignorant. It was my ignorance that wanted, let's jump on the back of this thing and go get Silva arrested. And he could have just been cool and said, I'm not coming, you go. But he said, I'm not coming, neither are you going into that thing because this is what this moment is about. So Durban Westville was good. It was a good campus. We had some, I think Mangope's daughter was on our school, and she was part of a crew that blew up the only ATM on campus. Like we just had an interesting thing. We had who's the guy? Sheikh. One of the Sheikh brothers was my political science lecturer. The activist, and he would be away for like 3 months and we'd have no lecture. I'm like, what are we doing in this? And then much later you discover this dude was like proper underground controversies or person, and we just think of him as this good looking lecturer who misses 3 months and then comes back for an exam and then goes away for another 3 months.
I had a realization that our time in Durban overlaps.
Really?
Because I went to University of Natal, Durban.
What years are those?
I was there 92 to, so I mean, I finished end of 94. So I graduated 95.
Did you ever come onto our campus?
Yes, all the time.
Because we didn't speak to the Natal boys because you guys thought you were proper and prim. So like Durban, Westville and Natal were like, it's like UCT and Western Cape or something. It's like, we don't talk to them because they think they're better than us.
Maybe it was you and your people because I partied at you.
Really?
I partied at Westville enough times.
Oh my God.
I mean, one of my oldest friends, I don't know if you know Matona.
Yes, I know Matona.
Yeah, so I've known Matona since then.
And I didn't live on campus, which I think is also the other thing. Because after coming from boarding school, I just didn't want to be in another organized thing. So I lived in a boarding house in Sydenham. Okay. And I worked at the Natal Playhouse.
Okay.
Oh, Kojo, happy days. Happy days. I fall in love with theater. I have a seeding of the cultural arts, practice, form, craft, timing, personal evolution, like all these enriching things, right? Because it's not about the car you drive. It's like, can you hold an interesting conversation? So it teaches you to just follow through. What is this? Where does that come from? And I paid for my boarding house that way. So I modeled part-time, and then I worked at the Natal Playhouse the rest of the time. And then you knock off at midnight and you walk all the way up from West Street to Point Road, and the sex workers are yelling at you. What are you doing here? I'm like, sisters, trust me, I am too tired to compete with you. I just want to go to bed. So that was my life. And then I came back here and started work. But Durban was good. Westville was good for me.
So for me, it was an interesting time. And I always say what I love about Durban coming from Maseru was the city, but it also has that enough of like a small town feel. So, going from Maseru, which is also a city, and kind of moving to Durban and our lives were like, I lived a very specific, and I lived in res.
Okay.
So I was at some
I
stage.
missed that experience.
At some stage, I was probably the lightest person in a res of a good like 500-600 students.
So
in what 92, 93, 94. And my first, I think, 2 months into being on campus, there's a class boycott. But the difference between UND and Westville was, so we boycott classes, and we are less than 10% of the student population. That number of people miss lectures generally anyway.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're having it's not like you're having an impact on. It's like, yeah, okay, so the darker hued people are not here.
That's so funny. That's so
But
funny.
yeah, it doesn't really make much of a difference.
Our campus was very active.
Yeah.
People were like, Makabanas through and through. They were very clear about what's not okay, what's okay. People had real experiences of 76, so they were not messing around. I mean, they were not. My only act of activism was beating some Indian guy who revealed himself to me in the library. That was like the genesis of my active feminism, and I clapped him proper. But it was like a proper thing, and then I started understanding this thing about the objectification of women. And then I went all the way to bell hooks, like all the way. Then I came out of there. I was like, don't you even look at me with that side eye, because I'm coming, because I'm coming for you. So I learned to understand South Africa's politics, because we didn't do a lot of that history in Swaziland. And then I learned how to continue to just find space for yourself in a multicultural setting. But Durban my varsity days were kind. I did French, because my French lecturer was so good looking. Oh God, Jesus. Kojo, do you know that I flunked my first quarter of French? Because I didn't hear a thing. I literally would just watch his Adam's apple. And it's the first word I learned in French, pomme d'Adam. That's all I did. And he would say to me, if you start listening to me, you may just write one word or two words. And I said, I know the one word, pomme d'Adam. He's like, forget my pomme d'Adam and pay attention. So that I regret. I wish I had paid more attention to my French. But I learned our school, if you did French up to year 3, you could go off and spend a summer in Paris. If you did German, a girlfriend did German, and she went off and spent 3 months in Berlin. So they were global in outlook. They really did try and prepare us for the world. But here we are. I don't know how much in the world I am.
Very much.
Really?
In your own way.
How so?
I say in your own way because I feel like I have kind of, not necessarily say faded, but I have withdrawn from certain things, but I'm still kind of in my own way plugged in.
Say more.
So what's always fascinated me about you,
Yeah,
and I think we met. I remember us meeting. I don't know if we had met before that, but when I was brought on to judge the BASA Awards, my first year.
My God, we were 2. I was 2. You were 1.5. You were a baby.
I was I was a whole editor of a magazine.
But you were still babies. Like, fudge. I look back at the stuff I didn't. Do you know, like, Kojo, you were in history and I was in history and didn't realize that in that moment, history was unfurling around me and before me. But anyway, I interrupt you. I'll tell you the history story.
But so we meet, but it's always felt like you kind of have a sense of what's going on in the world without necessarily being at the forefront. Like every time I see you, it's kind of like kind of what's going on. You have a sense of the energy, the movements in the world, without having to be the person right in front. And my work, particularly, I've always kind of been behind the scenes, but particularly when I went into magazine. I mean, as a poet, I had to get on stage, but for me, that was just a function of the times. Like I discovered that if you wanted to share poetry, you had to get up on a stage in front of people. It was like, okay, well, I'm kind of like this poetry thing right now, so let me do that. I'd always prefer people to just pick up my stuff and read it on your own. So when I was a Destiny man in particular, all of a sudden I'm having to be the person out there. And I was on social media and I was quite active and I was an early adopter of most platforms. And over the last couple of years, I've kind of gone, okay, do you know what? I don't have to do that anymore. And have kind of, let's say, withdrawn into my bubble. And it's been like that for a couple of years. I also don't have like a huge circle of friends. I don't really socialize. But I have people that are important to me that I care about. But everybody's used to the fact that I'm not going to call every week. You're not going to see me, you're not going to see me for periods. And I've had a friend say to me, I wasn't sure whether it was all right to phone you or not. But it's particularly in doing this, for example, so far, there is some kind of connection with every person I've had on the podcast, including kind of one or two who I had a photographer, Jabulani Tlamini, I think her name is. So he came on the podcast. As I was researching for the episode, I discovered that at the Kojo Baffoe, the first artwork that stopped me and I took a picture of, a man on a horse outside a house in, I think, the Free State or something, was his photograph. So I spend a lot of time, I kind of know what people are doing. And if I find it interesting, I dig in, but also sometimes I get that information. Like you just kind of absorb it. And then you're having a conversation with somebody and you're realizing, oh, like I've known this person since this period. And I've known them for 20 years. And I've interacted with them physically. Like we've been in each other's presence maybe like 4 or 5 times. I had Donald Ngumalo.
Yes.
I met him here for the first time. But I've been following his career, I realized, for what, a decade?
So what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean about how we form relationship? Right? Because relationship, I think, is it's the open-heartedness
Yeah.
that I find missing a lot today. Because I think too many of these connections are transactional, and I get a rash from
So
the
I'd add it's either transactional and or performative.
Yes. So, and those things, as somebody who, the benefit of boarding school, one is that, it's not a benefit, but a girl called Wendy Zeman bullied me, haha. And part of that was I had to learn how to befriend myself. And becoming my own best friend has been a golden thread across my life. So to your point, I engage with people because I feel there's something I can contribute, and they too can teach me something. So the circles have never been big. They've always been tiny and deep. That's the first part on just that relation piece. The second piece is somehow the universe has just blessed me with elderly men who just fathered me. And I don't know whether in looking at me, they saw a kid who had been underfathered, but whether it is with Dr. Ivan May, who was at Nedbank, who started the sustainability thing at Nedbank, and that's how I got to BASA, by the way. And he would just say, he would sit on the Verts Super Senior something, and he'd say, we're having an annual event at this Verts Super Senior thing, come with me. And you're in a room, you're seeing Judge Cameron there, and he introduces you to everybody. Not this is a young lady, remember her? No, this is Sizakele, like literally. No, I wasn't Sizakele in those days. I was that other name, which we don't use anymore. Don't ask.
I
what
don't
that
know
other
it, but okay, we'll keep it moving.
but so I was really fortunate that I'd had godfathers in that sense, and then I had a few older Black women who were super kind. And that blend of just peers who connect, who lead you to other things because they know that you are interested in the unfamiliar, then it would feed my curiosity. Because I've never been interested in the trendy, or the fashionable. It's never been my comfort space. I've always found a way, I don't know whether it's a gift or not, to just smell something, know that it's going to smell good when it's cooked. And I just go that path. Like, so let's think about, you leave corporate, you leave advertising, because when I was at BASA, I was still in advertising.
Yeah.
And then I leave advertising, I go work at a bank, and I am bruised properly. And I go into the wilderness for like 4 years, right? To pull yourself together. You know, the million pieces, like literally just plaster them back together again. And there's something humbling about bleeding in full sight. And finding the community of care you need to glue you back together again. So when you come back out in like 2016 to start this strategy thing that I do now, I'm now at a loss because I'm thinking, I've been doing this branding thing for over 20 years. Are you sure there's nothing else for you to do? Maybe there is. Go back to school. So then I go back to school. So 6 years, I'm studying for my PhD. I'm working 2% of the time. You graduate in the pandemic and you go, I want to do something else. Then you end up teaching. You're standing in front of a class and you're telling people the shit you think you know and understand. I'm answering your question about, I always seem to be plugged in. I don't know whether it's plugged in so much as it is follow my nose and my interest, and somehow it makes sense in the doing, not in the studying, but in the doing. So I've been really, really blessed in having, I think of, in my imagination, I think of you as someone I have known for a long time.
It does feel like we've known each other for a long time.
And also somebody whose sensibilities I feel I understand, because I don't see you at everything. And I don't read about you everywhere. But when I connect with you, I feel a sincerity that comes from a depth of character. And that's the stuff that I find really rewarding in connections now. It's not so much the contact, it's the connection. Like when you gather, Do you feel like you've added value? Yes. Do you feel like that person made you think of 3 things? I'm like, yeah, they did. Okay,
Yeah.
good. So that's how it goes.
You are listening to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast, a podcast in which I chat to Africans from a cross-section of society and sectors, including art, culture, design, business, and creativity, to name a few. We delve into their journeys, the decisions they have taken to get to where they are, how they do what they do, and everything in between. Essentially, we go wherever the spirit takes us. Now let's get back into the conversation.
How it goes.
You seem to have studied a lot, though.
Yeah, too much sometimes, but yes, I have. What do you mean a lot? Like I went to NYU for a film course.
Yeah,
I've done tourism.
like in the middle of masters, political science, sociology, etc., and in between, and then what, critical studies and
Yes,
all these very important sounding
I
words.
know,
Then
I know.
in the middle of it's like what, 2007? Let me go do a film program.
Why not? If it interests you, follow it through. But I think my therapist thinks there's something with that PhD thing. She thinks it's the you're going to be a doctor thing. That I didn't do their way, but I did it my way.
Okay.
Which I hadn't thought of it that way, because for me it was just, I want to go learn something new. Like I want to be afraid again. And being afraid again is really healthy for me because I'm humble, I'm a student, and nothing about my way is arrogant because I don't know ish. So I have to start afraid. So that's what she pointed. I'm like, I could double your pay for this session because I didn't see that coming. But I do love knowledge. I do love learning, but I also, much more than learning, I love sharing it. In the past, my tone was quite pedagogic and judgmental. So it was, do you know what I know? And now it is more storytelling than me on a podium telling you what I know.
Yeah.
So I've evolved. I think people who worked with me 10 years ago, even listening to this, would go, oh my God, she's a cow. If you're listening to this, I'm no longer a cow. I'm a reformed cow. I'm much softer and much more gentle in my ways.
Look, a part of me does envy you.
I'm sorry.
And maybe that's why I say you seem to have studied a lot. So I was at a market recently and met a guy selling perfumes. So he had these different fragrances, and each one is like inspired by Tom Ford this or Miyagi that. And so I asked the guy, and so I bought one for myself, I bought one for my daughter.
Yes.
Very nicely priced. I asked the guy, so do you make these? He's like, yeah. I'm like, what prompted you to start? He's like, I was a pharmacist and I got entrenched. And I thought, make fragrances. And so when we were walking out and my family don't get it, I was just like, see, that's a nice way to live. Like find something that you're interested in and then just do that. Like, make something, like learn how to make something with your hands. And then
But you were like that too, Kojo. You love words.
Yes, but I never feel like I have the time, and I feel it more right now. One, I have too many hobbies. I discovered that I have too many things I want to do as hobbies, and I need to cut those back because I'm not doing any of them. Like
okay.
I have
Like what?
I have like 8 boxes of 1,000 to 1,500 word puzzles that are just sitting there because I haven't started them. But like building puzzles,
the day
right?
will come, yeah.
I have multiple coloring books, and I keep buying new ones. My bonsai trees, at least the 2 I have now, are being revived. I thought they were dead. Okay. And this was like my 3rd and 4th.
Okay.
I unfortunately killed the first 2.
Forgiven.
And I have a list. Like I have a list of stuff I want to try. And years ago, like when I was still involved in poetry and stuff, I always used to say I'd love to go back to school and do like a BA in literature. Just because. Just because I can, right? I only did an undergraduate degree. When everybody was going to honors, I had a job, so I got a job in Durban, but it ended up not panning out.
Yes.
But I was working, like I used to go home once a month because we had a shop selling hair products. So I'll take the Transstate from Durban on a Friday night. I'd arrive in Maseru early Saturday morning, sometimes drive to Joburg to buy stock and drive back, and maybe do stock take in the shop. And then on Sunday afternoon, my father drops me off at the bus. And then I go back to Vasti. And so after exams, while I was still trying to figure out, because I'd already signed a contract, but I was struggling to get a work permit, I was working. Like I was waking up, I had business cards and everything, right? So I was working. And the poetry and the writing and stuff I've just always written. Like my father always encouraged me. It's like, get stuff out of your head to clear space. So the writing thing, I haven't studied it. I mean, I did a journalism, I know it was a certificate or diploma at Damlin, but my wife was working and I used to have to take her in on Saturday mornings. So I figured, and at the time I discovered I could get half price on a course. So I thought, I'm here Saturday mornings anyway. So rather than dropping her off, going home, coming back, let me just go and do a course.
But that's your gift though. Like,
so there are things, so because of that, when people talk about honors, I'm like, yo man, I need to work. I was going to my plan was to do a master's in the year 2000.
Yes.
At London School of Economics or Harvard. And it was a master's in economics. In those days, a mature student.
Yes.
So I was going to be, I was going to be 28 in 2000.
A mature student.
So as a mature student, you know where you've worked.
Yes.
And that's your entry, right?
Recognition of prior learning.
Exactly. Yes. And then life happened. And I never did that. And when, for example, MBA started becoming popular, and my wife worked at Gibbs. Like I had a relationship when Jill Marcus was there, yes. When she worked with those people, like I could have gone and done an MBA and maybe negotiated a deal. I was poet laureate for Gibbs. Gibbs has only ever had one poet laureate in his life, and that was me.
Yay!
For about 2-3 years, right?
Gosh.
And then she did some consulting for Henley. And they said, why don't you come in and do an MBA? And my father used to say, my father had what he termed illiterate literates. It was people who were constantly in school, but just couldn't navigate the real world.
Yeah. Agreed, but ignorant.
Yeah. And so he was always like, if you're going to go study something, you must know why you're going to do it. And so the MBAs and all of these things, and I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. But to go do something in literature or creative writing because I can, or philosophy.
Yes.
The why is because,
because you can.
It'll make me feel good because I can.
No, but also because that's your gift, though. Like, I really think that the stuff that we become amazing at is the stuff we were born with. And I think you were born with that stuff. What do I think is my gift? I think my gift is the unconventional nature in which I connect dots. So ending up, advertising was a good training ground for that because you had to connect dots in these unconventional ways. And I've carried that through. So when people talk to me about being creative as artistic expression, I try and use my inside voice in encouraging them to expand that definition, because it's not artistic ability. It is mental explosion. It's your ability to look at three things and go, if we put them together, there's a stew the family's eating. And if we can get to the place where we think of creativity in that way, there'd be a lot more room for mad. And we wouldn't be called mad. Because the reason people call us mad is because you've othered this creative thing as a secret sauce that only 3 people in the world have. All of us have it. We just don't, either we don't have the nurturing environment that allows it to explode, or we haven't given ourselves permission or haven't self-labeled as creative. Because I walk in the world as a person with deep creative abilities, and I describe myself as such because I truly believe that that's the gift.
There's a guy, Austin Kleon, who I'm a fan of. He's written several books. One's called Steal Like an Artist.
Yeah.
He calls himself an artist who writes or a writer who draws. Also, just the format of his books is cool. But one of his last books, I think it's called Keep Going. Like we're talking about, earlier on, talking about just kind of this idea of how we define things. So the jargon that we use, so personal brand. He writes about this idea of creatives as a noun. And he's like, creative as a verb. And for me, it hit the proverbial kind of nail on the head, because I'd also always struggled with this idea of creative as a noun, because it implies that only people who do certain things are creative. Whereas creativity, like you're saying, creativity is being able to join the dots regardless of field.
Yes.
Regardless of subject.
Yeah.
A lawyer in a courtroom, or a lawyer, consulting, an accountant, like everybody is creative. We just express it.
And the kid who steals a BMW in under 4 seconds, the one they said you couldn't steal it.
Yeah.
Instead of punishing that kid, let's redirect that energy to someplace else, because that's creative expression.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really interested in how we, as a cohort, because our generation is now this cohort, how do we go into the world and keep that volume up on creativity misdirected can be a social ill. So how then do we redirect that? So instead of people looking for mentors, like, oh, I'm in marketing, Zah, can you be my mentor? I'm like, no. How about, Zah, go and find a young girl who's made 3 missteps, and you can see in the missteps that she's searching for something. How about you find that person and try and redirect that? Because I think that's where the responsibility is. Like, not work with people who are already polished.
Yeah.
Go find the ones that we've left. There aren't enough people for young souls to look at. Because we've all left. None of us live where we were born. We almost but we have. I do think that there's an opportunity for that, because I don't have an older sister, and I would love to be a responsible older sister to just young ones who want to do something with their lives. So don't come at me when you think my job is to give you things.
Yeah, one of the things I learned, and I remember approaching 2 people, be my mentor. And the first person was like, okay, look, I'm busy. It's quite high powered. Busy, I'm mentoring a bunch. But I think you should this person. And the person that I was referred to was in business, but had a legal background, but was also a photographer and had been in theater and.
Lovely.
And I think I was 42, 43 at the time. And this person said to me, okay, you need to figure out if, like, the path that you're going to take, because you're at an age where if you're going to go into a corporate, it should be at a certain level.
Right.
But your background and your experience, like, I'd be told I'm overqualified, underqualified. My experience wasn't relevant, because if I'm going in for a marketing manager position, and I'm like, I've spent over 20 years, been in management consulting. I've had shop selling hair products. I've been in IT. I've worked in furniture. I've been a poet. I have 20 plus years of experience in marketing different products and services. And they're like, no, but
That's not
it
what
needs
we're
to
looking
be
for. Exactly.
within this
The
particular
box.
structure.
Yeah.
You know, and so eventually, I mean, I still interact with them, but we never kind of took the thing further. I kind of just ventured back into my world of uncertainty. But when people would approach me to be their mentor, I always ask, okay, so what does that look like in your mind?
Yes.
Because you discover that people sometimes want you to do the work for them. And I'm like, well, if I'm doing the work for you, I'm also not gaining from this experience because I'm not learning from you. You're not learning from me because I'm doing everything for you.
But also the reason this thing is called mentorship, it sounds like other word like a relationship, right? So it speaks to an exchange.
Yeah.
So if you want me to be your mentor, what are you going to teach me? And then they look at me, they go, but you are older. That is not under dispute. I know this, but what do you want to teach me? Then you realize that people they don't know that there can be a relationship where there's an exchange. Because if you were born 20 years ago, your perspective on life is different from mine. And if in our exchanges, I walk away thinking, oh, wow, I love it that way. That's you teaching me. And so I've had a few people who've stayed around to teach me stuff, which I really like. So we run this little thing called the exchange. Because every time you get off stage, you have like 10 young people say, please, can you be my mentor? I'm like, I don't have the bandwidth. But and I realized that it's also limiting for 10 young people to just engage with ZAR. How about I bring 10 other wise women to engage with 10 other young women? So now we've got the exchange where we have the lionesses, people from my cohort, and the cubs. And we sit the third Saturday of November. And we just literally just have a lunch, and you can bring to the table whatever is bugging you, whether it is, I don't know how to come out to my folks. I don't know how to tell my father that my uncle misbehaves with me. I don't know how to tell my mother that I don't want to finish this degree because this is what she wanted me to do, but I don't want to. So we have opportunity, and for us to just go, I'm making peace with a life that's not on social media. So you need my permission before you post. Like when you're with me, can you just put your phone away and be here with me? And I can see their hands are itching, like you don't know what to do. I'm like, just hug me if you don't know what to do with your hands, because we don't have to report on everything. So there's a joy in that exchange. There is. What have I learned from all my studying, Kojo? I have learned that you will never know everything. I follow my nose on the things that interest me. I do love this multi-dimensional life that I have designed, because it means I am always interested in what's going on in the world. Some smart person once said to me, interesting people are interested. And I've always wanted to be an interesting person. Like I remember looking at, I'm going to forget her name now, African-American photographer, lady. I can see her, she dances like this. She always wears her shirts with like one button undone. Carrie May. Her work is black and white, and it's always in situ. So she'll have pictures of like a woman you think is naked because all you see is just nothing here, but it's shots from the back or laughter or things like that. So I've always looked at her when I was younger and thought, that is such an interesting human being. Like when someone walks, you catch a whiff of just how they carry themselves in the world. So I've always wanted to be interesting, and the only way I could be interesting is by remaining. Try and live that way. Like when you said, hey, let's come have a talk, I'm like, I don't know what he wants to talk about, but I'm interested. So here we are.
I mean, I am fascinated by curiosity. And
Carrie Mae Weems is her name.
Yeah, I am fascinated by curiosity, and at some stage realized I don't know where it comes from, but I was blessed with curiosity about just sometimes what others feel are the most random thing. And now I call it rabbit holes. And I don't even have to go too deeply. Sometimes it's just oh, okay.
That's what it tastes like. I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember being in Ireland, and a friend of mine, I was invited by alcohol brand, and they had like a summer festival going on. A friend of mine worked for the brand, and they had different talks in different rooms and just different stuff going on. And we were coming from one talk and we were going to go to another, and we kind of stopped in the open area to get a drink.
Yes.
And there was a master cooper on stage taking apart and putting together barrels, just showing us how they take it up, because it's actually just the two metal parts, and then these slabs. And I'm like, okay, he's like, yo, let's go. I'm like, no, give me a second. I want to see. And then he finished it, and I'm like, cool. I saw it and I left. It's only ever been a story. Like, I don't think I've ever had to use it in my life. But it gave me joy
and satisfaction.
Yeah,
right?
and satisfaction from watching that.
Curiosity is the flip side of certainty. And certainty can make your world really small because it's quite convergent.
Yeah.
Whereas curiosity is this way. Literally, it's just what's going on down that passageway. Everywhere I've been in the world, I travel, Kojo, because there are places I want to go to. Like, okay, I want to go to this place, I'm going to go. So I don't ever read TripAdvisor, Lonely Planet, Condé Nast Traveler is my aesthetic. So I'll read about I finally get to Bali after 10,000 years of saying I want to get to Bali last year. Because I had read about this hotel 3 years ago. Okay, I'll go after the hype has died down. Then I can discover it for myself. And then you land and the concierge says, how long are you here for? I'm like, 14 days. And so you want to go to this place, the waterfall? I'm like, no, give me a day. And I'll pull together my own itinerary. And invariably, I get to do shit that people go, how did you know about that? I'm like, well, because I'm interested in where the bellboy goes to have supper, not where you are going to send me to have supper. So I've had the most glorious of experience. So we end up in Ulpotha, which is in Sri Lanka. And it's a tiny little retreat where it's opened only March to June, and then September to December. In the other times, they let the earth refresh. But it was my first New Year's Eve with no alcohol. Like, I was sober when I saw the New Year, and I'm going, oh my God, I've been missing out on all these ticking over moments. But then I realized that on the morning of New Year's Day, the elderly men in the village have a ceremony where they sit by the riverside. They offer to the gods rice cooked in cocoa. They just dish this out on these bamboo leaves. Just let that float onto the river. Like, thank you for last year's harvest. Bless us again for this. I ask, are women allowed? They go, no. I'm like, but could I pass? Oh, yes. So I passed. Just sat there with no hair, and Scout just literally was just propped on my heels like the dudes, and I observed. And I'm like, yay, I get to do this. So that's what curiosity does. It invites you into people's lives, so that I think for me, my curiosity deepens my compassion. Because when I know why that is of interest to you, it gives me another layer of understanding about what drives you and what feeds your joy in the world. So it's been rewarding. Dangerous at times, but just still reward. Like, I have a guy friend who I get to New York for the first time, and Dada, he says to me, what's the craziest thing you'd want to do in New York? Drive a yellow cab, And we got to do that because we paid the guy who was driving us at midnight. And he said, my sister's from Africa. If you let her do this, she will talk about you until she has no breath left in her lungs. And I'm still talking about it. Like,
Yeah.
dude, just 2 blocks. I'm like, that's all I needed, just 2 blocks. So that's what curiosity does. Like, it has enriched my life. It has. It really has. It really has. I don't know what my life would be if I had stayed in the box. I think it would have made my mother's life a lot simpler because it would be easier for her to tell her friends the choices are made. Like, you have a child, she's a girl, she doesn't want children. What does that mean? She had to explain that over and over again. You have a daughter, she marries a guy who's in the ways of the world, successful. Why does she leave him? Got to explain. So I do think that if I had stayed in the box, I would have did a little. But I would have been unhappy.
But also, I mean, easier, but also, yes, it's being a parent. It's a part of her growth, right? Like, I understood my father a lot better when I had kids.
Oh wow.
I also understood my father a lot better when I had. Now all the stuff I rebelled against. So I sneeze like my father. Like I can't get over it. Like I've just accepted the fact. But every time I sneeze, I think of him, and I'm just like, and he used to irritate me when I was younger, the way he sneezed, right? But I mean, my semi-cliched line, and even writing my book was really about that. Was if we allow them, our children enable us to become better people. And allowing them is constantly reflecting. So I am constantly encouraged, forced, motivated to reflect on how I am showing up as a parent, sometimes daily.
And does the girl do it differently from the boy?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Wow.
I mean, it's girl, boy, it's different personalities, it's different ages, it's everything. Like it's my daughter being born into a household, and there's 4 years between them.
Yeah.
Born into a household that had its own rhythm. And then kind of coming in and going, okay, actually, I'm in charge. It's my daughter who's always singing and used to complain that we don't talk in the family because she wants to chat about stuff. Okay. When she was younger, right? It's as they come into themselves, they're constantly changing. So you can't figure it out once. So I find myself, for better or for worse, constantly reflecting on, even when there's conflict and I'm reacting a particular way, like reflecting on whether I stand by reacting that particular way, even though it feels like it's not conducive to progress. Like, okay, I'm not going to bend on this. How do I feel about that? Am I doing the right thing? Knowing that you'll never determine whether it's right or wrong. So,
but it's because you are conscious, though, Kojo. I don't know that. Like, I think there are conscious parents who reflect on this sort of stuff, and then there are parents who just go because I said so, and that's the end of the story.
But also the evolution of relationship. You talk about relationship earlier on. The evolution of relationship, whether they do it consciously or not, they're being forced to evolve, to learn. So whether it made sense to your mother or not, she is also forced. Even the act of explaining
is an education thing on its own.
It's education thing in terms of her and her journey. So also learning that, like, my father had his journey. It was his journey. I have my journey. My children have their journey. And I always say I was fortunate enough to have my father till I was my 40s, which means that I got to also see him and interact with him as an adult.
Okay.
With, flaws and all.
Yes.
But recognizing that, because when I'm younger, those flaws are there to make my life miserable. When you're a teenager, your parents' job is to make your life miserable. But now, being 41 years old, and knowing that, no, it wasn't to make my life miserable. He's just trying to do the best that he can with what he has as a human being. The emotional, intellectual, whatever tools that he has. Now that I'm trying to do the same, it's like, okay, now I get it.
So now you've got compassion for him, like, oh, I understand where that guy was coming from. I have compassion now. And to your point, when I'm younger and you have a parent who says no, sleep over, no, can I go to this party? No, you go, oh, I think I'm adopted. Where's my real mother? And now that I'm older, I have so much more compassion. In fact, I think the softening of my heart towards my mother's parenting style was when I realized that both of us had been underfathered. Then I'm like, oh, we are these girls who are constructing a fixed view of what a father figure would have done or not done because we don't know what that felt like. So that was the one piece. The other one was also just recognizing that for her, like for me, she had to leave home to create a life she designed. Then you go, okay, so I recognize the pioneering spirit in her. So now there are overlaps that I use, even in disagreement. I go back to that place to just go, she may be struggling with this, or we may be struggling with this in this moment, but at our core, we're just these young girls who are underfathered and we're trying to find our ways. So that compassion.
One of my biggest epiphanies when I was writing my book, and it happened as I was writing. My father grew up without his mother. I grew up without my mother. My son is growing up with his mother and his father. And I had a moment where it was like, with my father and I didn't have to speak about certain things, like it made sense. So our interaction, my tone, all of those things, because we're both men raised without our mothers, we spoke the same language. And then it was like, okay, but my son doesn't have that. So sometimes I need to step back because I don't know what that's like. So trying to navigate that as a parent, navigate the relationship between myself and his mother, who is my wife, and then her relationship with him. And those are different relationships. And sometimes I need to actually step back when they're interacting because I don't know what that's like.
It's a different lane, yeah.
And the flip side being, because my mother was raised by a single mother. So certain things that I approach as a man and as a father, she may not get. So she may see it in a particular way, but it's like, but you never had that. And there are certain ways that I will show up as a man. And it's not good or bad. It's just for me, in terms of how I was raised, going back to values, principles, perspectives. That's how I was raised, and therefore I'm going to raise my children with the same thing. And so, yeah, in a way, we're parenting, we're being parented, we're parenting, and to a certain extent, I guess, especially in the world we're in today, we're reparenting ourselves, trying to fill in the gaps.
It's lovely that you're not doing it alone, right?
Yeah.
You have a partner
absolutely.
on this journey to just go, am I losing my mind? Or do you really think
Which also has its own dynamics. Because if you then don't agree on a route you're taking, it makes it something else,
But
yeah.
There's still a beauty, I think, in looking. So I had a T-shirt made, which was the use of force is a function of powerlessness.
Mm.
And I remember how parents or parental figures would do that in my life. And I recognize in myself, in my leadership roles in corporate, when in the instances when I would be forceful, those are instances when I felt most powerless. So I think there are things we give away in how we show up in instances. So when literally you hear a parent say, "'Cause I say so," they've run out of ideas. Like, okay, that's it. They've run out of ideas. I watch how my friends parent their kids and how I engage with those kids because I don't have the not necessarily the softness, but this bandwidth that can make me feel emotionally tethered to them. I can be quite practical in the your mother asked you to do this. Why must she ask you 3 times? When you ask her to go shopping, she's in the car before you can finish your sentence. So let's try and recalibrate that. So I think there's a merit in having the primary unit and then all these other people who just add to the pot. But you are in a raising human beings, like I said at the beginning, is not an easy thing. So you guys have all my respect. You really, really do, because you're raising them for the world, not for you.
Yeah.
For the world. And you hope that they'll be kind people who are additive, who are all these things, and who can look back and go, I had my father, Kojo, and say wonderful things about you.
I'll see.
You think
time will tell.
No, man. I mean, they're already grown. The minute they're past the age of 8, they're okay. Doing a good job.
Okay. Yeah, no, we won't. Like, I'm getting flashbacks.
No? Okay, good. Okay, no, this is fine. So ask me, what other question do you want to ask me? I can save you from further digging by Zara, because I can take you down there.
As we're closing up, so what's exciting you right now? Interesting you, intriguing you, or thinking about?
A couple of things. One is for a person who, for the longest time, was brain identified, because my brain got me through school, got me through work, got me through this first generation label that people use. How might I recalibrate so that I can nourish what may have very well been an anorexic spirit?
Okay.
I was obese, mentally obese. So I'm trying to recalibrate, like how to water that down back to health. That's the first piece. And it's everyday work, I guess, which is why Buddhism holds such appeal for me, because it's everyday practice. And the pain of confronting yourself all the time is an undertaking I have chosen because I'm trusting that it will nourish my joy eventually. So that's the first piece that intrigues or invites me or excites me. The second one is finally seeing that all these multiple spokes actually have a golden thread. Mm-hmm. So like, however far I have gone off the plantation, there's the curiosity, there's the unconventionality attached to it. And then the third piece is the what I'm here to learn. I'll sit on a Sunday, because Sundays I don't speak to any human being. And I live in my thoughts. I don't allow myself to write. So I have to process the thought. Whether I get off my yoga mat, I go for a walk, but I live with it. It's like, no, you can't write it down, because the minute you write it down, then you're back here. I have to try and sit with that stuff. And I'm now, on Sunday, I was sitting with what are the experiences I've never had because fear got in the way? And I'll tell you where this comes from. At Christmas, I was emptying a box of old letters because I still keep letters. Like one girlfriend of mine has left South Africa in 1997, and we've written over time. And there was a note on there that said, "This is where I leave it. You're a hard nut to crack." And it was unsigned. And I thought, words are, there was somebody in your circle who was trying to get to know you, and you were like this numbskull with the nutcase. So that's what got me thinking about what are the experiences that fear has kept me from. So the excitement is I really want to be deliberate in looking fear in the face and moving forward, including trying to swim in as many tidal pools in the Western Cape as I can before the 31st of.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. So yeah.
We could have kept going for a while.
Oh my God. Are we done?
Yes.
How much?
It's about an hour and 40 minutes.
Are you kidding me?
Thank you for listening to this conversation. Please leave a review and subscribe. Check out the show notes for links to the guest, the podcast, and myself. I hope you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it.